All right. Welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Jenna Johnson, and I am an academic trainer with the Center for Teaching and Learning. Today's session is titled Dear Stress, Let's Break Up, presented by NCU alumni, Dr. Jason Walker. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to cover just a couple of housekeeping items before I hand the session over to Dr. Walker. I'm currently recording our time together, and the video will be posted in the Center for Teaching and Learning's LibGuide webinar page within 24 hours. If you have questions throughout today's session, you can type them into the Q&A forum, which you'll see at the bottom of the Zoom window. All questions are welcome, so don't be shy. The chat feature is also open. And just a reminder, if you want everyone to see your chats, be sure to select everyone from the list in the to box at the bottom of the chat screen. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Walker.
Thank you so much, Jenna, and hello, NCU. It's always great to be back, and thank you for having me again. I am currently struggling with my PowerPoint. There we go. I am currently in Canada, and in Canada, we begin our gatherings, our lectures, our events with a land acknowledgement. So if you've never heard of this term, it means to pay respect to the land to which we're facilitating. So we do this because in Canada, the land is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of First Nations people. So we say traditional to recognize how land is traditionally used or occupied by First Nations people. We say ancestral to recognize that land is handed down from generation to generation, and unceded to recognize that land has not been turned over to the Crown by treaty. So land acknowledgements vary depending on where you are. So I am on the Pacific Northwest in Coast Salish territory of the Cowichan people. So in Canada, land acknowledgements are important, and the actions we take to participate in self-education and reconciliation are important. So I invite you to participate today. We all come from different backgrounds and different learning opportunities. So we'll have some fun. We'll have some fun today around stress. So I got stressed out this morning. Because my stand-up desk didn't work. So I'm sitting today. However, if you would like to contact me, you are welcome to do so. And I would love to hear from you. Many people do after a seminar. Yeah, I encourage you to. So I graduated from NCU in 2017 and in general psychology. And then I was like, that's not enough school. So I went back and I did at another university, a PsyD, a clinical psychology degree. So I'm a professor of psychology at a couple of universities in Canada and the United States. I'm also in private practice. And for the last decade, I've been working in Indigenous First Nation communities. And my work is really centered around trauma and crisis response. So I'm really good at that piece. I'm also really interested in research. So since leaving NCU, I've had the opportunity to work on research teams and publish and really get a sense of academia through an applied lens. So today we're going to talk about stress. Stress, let's break up. In Canada, in the United States, we're fighting a new epidemic. I'm not talking about COVID, I'm talking about mental health. So mental health impacts 1 in 5 North Americans. For children and youth, that number is even higher. It's upward of 20%. So almost half of us have or will experience a mental illness during our lifetime. I talk openly about my experience living with post-traumatic stress disorder from a workplace injury. I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. There are times in my life where I get extremely sad or extremely anxious, and it's gotten a lot better over the years. However, we need to be able to talk about these things. There are high levels of stress amongst graduate students. I know that I don't have to tell you that. Stress is associated with a ton of negative outcomes. Academic burnout. Stress has negative impacts on our relationships with others. Sometimes we get cynical. According to the American College of Health Associations, 66% of graduates and professional students experience above average stress. That was before the pandemic. So today, I'm going to walk you through the neurobiology of stress. What is it? How does it impact us? What are some of the positive things about stress? And also, how is it working against us? And then what do we do about it? I'm not a very good poet, but I try. I try things. Roses are red, mornings are hard. I suck at poetry. Coffee, right? Come on, that's pretty good. So I've always been an early, this actually was terrible, but I have always been an early riser. Now, on March 13th, 2020, up here in Canada, the world shut down. So I decided during that time to embrace this opportunity in a different way. I was still working, work crisis, but a lot of my other work, teaching, everything shut down. So I decided I'm going to start getting up a little bit earlier. So since March 2020, I've been getting up at 4:30 in the morning. Why? It's quiet. I get to reflect on stuff. I get to drink my coffee. And then I watch a little bit of the news, which typically riles me up. Following that, I do a 7 to 10K run, followed by some weights. Exercise is one of the most crucial factors for your mental and physical health. So from March 13th, 2020 to 2021, I calculated that I went 2,920 kilometers. And what that means to you is 1,810 miles, 4 pairs of running shoes. I lost 15 pounds, probably put on more, but still, it doesn't matter. The point is, with stress and by other things, you have to set goals. So that was mine. It helps. And when I don't go or I don't exercise, my day is harder. 20.6% of US adults, 20.6, 51.5 million people at any given time have a mental health illness. Let that sink in for a minute. And now let's think about emotion. Okay, emotion. Now, I'm curious. I'm going to ask a question that Jenna is going to report back. When you think of emotion, anger, sadness, extreme happiness, how long does that last? Minutes, hours, days? What do you think? In the chat, what do you think? How long does an emotion last for? How long does an emotion last for?
Okay, Dr. Walker, we've got minutes, days, depends on the circumstance, minutes, maybe even seconds.
Okay.
As long as you let it.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right. Let me blow your mind for a moment. Science, okay? Emotions last for seconds. Think about it. How hard can you belly laugh and for how long? Or blind rage, right? Seconds. Now it might continue, it might come back. But really where we get stuck as humans is the difference between attitudes and emotions, and it impacts our stress. So attitudes are judgments about something. Judgments about something, right? School is hard. Yes. My attitude at school is hard. I agree with you. The emotional experience is quite rapid, right? In terms of fight, in terms of flight. So when we think of emotions, they're really innate to us, right? It's our reaction to something, usually to protect us. The choice is made when it comes to the attitude, right? So while emotions last for seconds, attitudes, man, they can last forever, forever. And that can be a problem, right? And stress is like that. So in cognitive behavioral therapy and clinical work and all that fun stuff, we always talk about, well, beliefs and feelings and behavioral interventions and then the actual behavior. But here's the thing about humans, there's this emotional piece, right? And the stronger we react to something, the stronger that anchor is. It really grounds and sets our attitudes around something. So traditional cognitive models often ignore the importance of this parallel emotional process, right? I bet some of you here work in the service industry or have that customer service maybe. Emotional labor, emotional labor. Someone at your table that you're serving, I don't like my steak. Okay, thank you very much. No problem. I'll take care of that for you, right? Or for any professors in the room, angry student. Uh-oh, right? Oh yeah, no problem. Let me relook at that for you. The effort of planning and control, emotional intelligence, right? Understanding our emotions and those around us, people high in emotional intelligence, we often have to expend a lot of energy on emotional labor, right? Emotional labor. Smiling and trying to be professional when inside we're really annoyed or upset. This is discongruent feeling. Your PhD chair sends you some feedback that you really don't like. You have to smile. Oh, thank you so much. Help me understand, right? So with emotional labor comes stress. It is difficult for humans to accurately display expected emotions that we're trying to hide, right? We're trying to be professional, trying to hide a true emotion, almost impossible. So emotional dissonance, right? Psychological tension is experienced when emotions are required to display something that's very different than what we're actually thinking or feeling. Now, here's the thing. Life is filled with stress, right? Filled with it. My desk didn't work. For fun, I sent an email to one of the NCU staff saying, oh, I'm preparing for the seminar next week. Sent it this morning. I just wanted to, in real time, have that, kick of energy for them. Not very nice. I thought it was quite funny. But challenge stressors can be good for us. It's called eustress. Time pressure. Oh, I got to submit that assignment by midnight. Uh-oh, gonna get it done. Workload. I thrive on workload. I do. I really do. Thrive on it. Oh yeah, more. And then to a point. Or levels of responsibility. Stress can be good for us. Now, in psychology, here's what people think, right? What I learned during my degree. We spent some time on personality, mental health, ethics, diagnosis. Man, I spent a lot of time on statistics. Still have. That's a stressor for me. So let's talk about stress. Actually, let me go to this slide first. Stress is an adaptive response to a situation that we perceive as challenging. What happens? Well, our heart rate goes up, muscles tighten, breathing speeds up, and our body has this huge dump of adrenaline. Eustress, eustress. It's good. A little bit of stress is good. It motivates us to achieve goals. Distress, psychological distress, becomes what we say maladaptive. It impacts our day-to-day life. We have learned as researchers not only how and why stress reactions occur, but we've gained insight into the long-term effects. And this chronic stress that we're seeing with people has a significant impact in physical and psychological health. Over time, repeated activation of stress response takes a toll on our body, right? From cardiovascular to our mental health. There's a transactional theory of stress that's on your screen. The transactional theory of stress really looks at how we understand and respond to a negative or stressful event, right? And we take time to appraise it. And sometimes that has to happen really quickly when our lizard brain kicks in, right? For fight or flight. And then later we do the secondary appraisal and determine how stressful it is. But here's the thing. When we experience something stressful, the amygdala in our brain, an area of the brain which contributes to emotional processing, sends this distress signal to the hypothalamus. The stress response, fight or flight, it's like the emergency reaction button. It's there to keep us safe in emergencies, right? Jumping out of the way of a car. The stress response includes physical and thought responses. It begins in the brain, as you can see, when we confront an upcoming danger, right? We hear it, we see it, we smell it, we taste it. All this information dumps into the amygdala, and then we got to process it. So the amygdala interrupts images, sounds, and we focus on the danger, right? So the hypothalamus, it's like the command center of the brain, okay? And this area of the brain communicates with everything else in the body through the autonomic nervous system. Controls breathing, blood pressure, heartbeat, dilation of the eyes. The autonomic nervous system has the sympathetic component and the parasympathetic component. The sympathetic, it's like a gas pedal in a car. Sympathetic, right? Triggers fight or flight. Parasympathetic, it's like the brake. And it promotes rest and digest, okay? So the stress brain loop is something that we're seeing more and more of in people, especially graduate students, especially people in university, high pressure jobs, especially since COVID. Why? That gas pedal gets stuck on. The gas pedal gets stuck on. The brain continues to perceive things as danger. The hypothalamus starts releasing chemicals, right? Impacting the pituitary gland. And what happens? Well, we stop sleeping. We don't sleep at all, or we sleep too much. Poor nutrition. I don't have time to eat. Yeah, you do. Getting emotional distress, challenging to pay attention to things. Why'd I walk in the kitchen? And you walk back out. Why am I back in my office? Walk back out, right? Short-term memory issues. So here's the thing. Humans are born with two fears. Two. Number one, loud noises, right? Think of a baby. Loud noise, startle reflex. The second is falling. Ever been asleep or trying to get to sleep? And you're like, oh my God, I'm falling. And you wake up. It's because your brain is like, he's falling asleep. He's not breathing fast enough. We need to wake him up. Having an extreme startle reflex, though, is problematic. Anger, rage, mood swings, feelings of being numb or disconnected, right? So what do we call? Well, we call it flipping our lid. So I want you to do something with me. Make a fist. Make a fist. Trust me, make a fist. A handy model of the brain. That joke never gets old. Okay, so this is your brain, okay? Everything's functioning well. Everything's talking to each other. So if this is your brain, then you lift up your fingers. Think of this as the inner brainstem. Okay, this is the inner brainstem. Anger, sadness, anxiety, and fear. That's what happens here, right? So we're going along, having a good day. Oh my gosh, that car is coming towards me. Or oh my gosh, my boss yelled at me. Or oh my gosh, something bad's happening. Flip our lid. And usually it's temporary. Usually it's temporary. And we'll resort back to, okay, I can ground myself. I can use mind, whatever. But unfortunately, what we're seeing more and more of is we're getting stuck up here in our lizard brain, if you will. Well, why is that? Well, hate to say it, COVID has had an impact. Some colleagues and I did a study, looked at the impact of mental health on COVID-19, or the impact of COVID-19 on mental health, I'm sorry. We kind of looked at it differently. We looked at it as a mass casualty event. I do crisis work. That's what we do. Here's what we found. In the literature, what we're seeing with people, what I see face to face with people, poor sleep, night terrors, panic attacks, this compounding symptoms of fear. Well, why is that? Right now, many of us believe there's this phase of collective trauma that's happening, right? We're all kind of experiencing something worldwide that's increasing our stress. We're having memory triggers, and it can elicit a lot of mental health issues. And often individuals who are experiencing this can't get the help they need. In fact, 70% of people who require specialized mental health treatment cannot access it. 70%. Evidence-based interventions and best practices to mitigate this acute stress that we all experience to some degree in our life. It's all about the window of tolerance, we call it. So here's what happened. We're going along in life. Things are going pretty good. Then there's this traumatic event. Could be a death. Could be anything. Starting school, finishing school, life transition. There's an event that occurs. And what happens is, in our body and our brain, we get stuck on, right? We flip the lid, we're stuck on. And in that phase, what do people feel? Oh, my tummy hurts. Yeah, it does. You're not digesting right. Getting headaches. Yeah, you are. I feel anxious. I bet you do. Panic, digestive problems, emotional flooding. Over time, chronic stress, people get stuck on. They're there for a while. But then what happens is you hit a wall, right? And you get stuck off. What happens when you get stuck off? People get depressed, flat affect. I don't want to get out of bed. You go from I can't sleep to all I can do is sleep. It impacts your blood pressure. It impacts your blood sugar. Stress is dangerous when it becomes chronic. So this hyperarousal, right, being triggered, and then the hypoarousal, well, things start shutting down. So let's talk about stress by the numbers. We're all academics here. We like numbers. The percentage of Americans who say that the future is a significant source of stress, is enormous. People are stressed out about money, 60%. Work, 61% of people are stressed at work. 51% of people are stressed about violence and crime. The percentage of Americans who worry about healthcare, the economy, government, war, the numbers are quite astounding. Interesting. People who follow the news regularly, 82% of them, 82% of us check the news daily, first of all. Then half of us that do that, I'm one of those people, over half of them say that causes me stress. Yet we keep doing it. I told you, I get up in the morning, coffee, and the news. You know why I don't watch the news at night? Stresses me right out. Need that in the morning. Now let's fast forward a little bit. All of a sudden we have a pandemic. 80% of people in the United States, as of this year, note that the pandemic is their main source of stress. 70% of people have said that their stress levels have increased during COVID. Well, yeah, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Thing is, our other stressors aren't going away. So that's apparently what's stressing us out, according to researchers. COVID, healthcare, climate change. Tomorrow, September 10th is Worldwide Suicide Awareness Day, right? We need to be aware of the impact of stress on our friends, on our family, the people we love, the people we work with. Another major stressor in America today is the opioid crisis, right? So we got a lot of stuff going on. The general adaptation syndrome, okay? General adaptation syndrome. It's a terrible slide, I apologize. But it's a model that allows us to understand stress. So number one, we get this alarm reaction, okay? There's a threat, a challenge. The opposite side of that is because we're directing all our energy to that threat, we have decreased energy and coping effectiveness. Number two, stage two, resistance. Biochemicals, psychological fortitude, behavioral mechanisms produces more energy, and coping mechanisms start to kick in, right? Because we don't want to be overrun by stress. But just like lifting weights, at some point, you can't lift anymore. And we hit exhaustion. Most of us are able to remove stress or the situation before we hit exhaustion. But more frequently, it's happening more and more and more with longer term outcomes, like I said. Think about the physical. I'm gonna stop for questions in a slide here, but before I move into what we do about it, think about the physical impact, okay? 30% of university students in North America during their education experience clinical levels of depression. 50% report feelings of being depressed, having difficulty functioning. 65% of us report being overwhelmed by anxiety. So university statistics show us that students deal with a lot of stress, and most of you are really high achieving people. 45% of us feel that we face more than the average person, whatever that means. So at the end of the day, half of us are stressed all the time. 50% of us all the time. And look what it does to our body. It impacts our anxiety, depression, mood. Our cardiovascular system is involved, high blood pressure. Joints hurt, muscles, especially you start getting older all of a sudden. Like I never used to hurt. We put on weight. I'll tell you, this is new. I went from medium to large in the last couple of years while working out. A lot of that is stress. Our immune system gets compromised. I got no hair left. Well, that's actually haven't had hair for about 13 years, but that's okay. It's genetics. But for some people, hair starts falling. I see clients where hair is falling out due to stress. Then there's the mental aspects of it. And all of this data comes from the American Psychological Association, proud to be a member. So when we consider the physical and emotional toll of increased stress, right? Half of adults report that our behavior is negatively impacted. Typically, tension, snapping. You snap at anyone lately? Snapping at people, especially people that you love, right? Getting angry very quickly, mood swings. Luckily, only 17% of us scream and yell. So these symptoms may stem from stress caused by multiple factors. I realize I just basically put up the same slide twice. I apologize. Please send your complaints to NCU. I'll try and change that for when we post it. Some of the other stressors, major stressors identified by the APA. I mentioned healthcare. 62% of people are worried about mass shootings. I mentioned climate change. These are all significant sources of stress. So the findings around stress really speaks to the hardship people are confronting right now in this moment in the world. So then the question becomes, what is it? And then what are we going to do about it? And I'll just leave that slide up. And then I'll ask Jenna, is there any exciting, pressing questions that aren't too hard for me to answer? Just the nice ones.
Just the nice ones. Okay.
Just the nice, easy ones.
Wow, we actually have quite a lot of conversation going on in the chat. Definitely some great comments there, but we do have a question, and it kind of takes us back to the beginning of the presentation. Essentially, how is mental illness defined?
Oh my gosh, that is a good question. So mental illness in most of the world is defined by the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, okay, produced by the APA. So we, as a mental health community, physicians, psychologists, mental health practitioners have come together. It's on my bookshelf. It's like this thick. You can pretty much diagnose someone with pretty much anything. Now, it's important because it allows us to understand what's happening and treat. The other side of that is the risk of labeling, right? We've got to be careful with that. Here's how I look at it. When I'm working with clinical students, when a behavior becomes maladaptive, right? It's impacting our daily life, our relationships with others, our work, our ability to function. It's maladaptive and becomes a mental illness. You can call it something different. I have to say illness. But the minute it becomes maladaptive to the point where it's impacting our ability to earn a living, to go to school, to get out of bed, we're hurting or harming ourselves or others, that's mental illness, right? So the most common, depression and anxiety, most common, mood disorder, right? And there's more serious things, personality disorders, cluster ABC stuff, right? It's a way for us to categorize and see the world through pathology. I take an approach where I use that 100%. I use the DSM. It helps me frame things and understand. I'm required to use it. However, there's this whole other aspect that we have to look at, the biopsychosocial aspects of what's happening to a person, right? More of a holistic approach towards mental illness or health or stress. So when I think about managing stress, I'll come back to that. When I think about managing stress, well, the easiest thing to do is, if you can, remove the stressor, right? Remove the stressor if you can. For a lot of people, that means like reducing noise, right? Or in the workplace. Employers out there, give employees more control over the work process. Actually invest in work-life balance stuff. I was joking before the camera was on. Like, I work 6 days a week. Come on, call half the time, right? I'm writing 2 chapters of a textbook, like 2. It's ridiculous. Got research happening. Work-life balance is critical. We got to be flexible in terms of our time and limit that. At about 50 hours of work in a week, pretty much just going through the motions, right? So withdraw from the stressor if you can, permanently, right? Would be awesome. Or at least temporarily, like take a break. You know, you're at school, take a break. You should be studying in segments of time, not, oh my God, I just sat for 12 hours. Well, yeah, I'm sure like 3 of those were probably really powerful for you, right? You take breaks, you exercise, you change stress perceptions. We improve our self-concept. How? Personal growth, emotional intelligence, humor. Laugh at most things are funny. Most, not all. You gotta be appropriate, but you know, most things are funny. Control your stress consequences. Exercise. You don't have to go for 10K. You can stand up every hour. How about that? Start there. Meditation in the research showed meditation is as effective for some people with mild depression as medication. Meditation. A lot of organizations are, you know, implementing wellness programs, or they hold employees to as part of your goals. It's part of your performance. Unfortunately, in academia, yeah, I'm going to bash academia, but I'm part of it, so that's fine. You know what we're terrible at? Oh, you didn't hit your deadline for your assignment. Oh, 0, right? You know, do self-care today? You ever have a professor ask you that? I'm going to let you guys go early so you can do some self-care. I do that. I do that with my students, right? We talk about this stuff. But academia has pretty much been the same for 4,000 years. In a lot of ways, we got to adapt better for students. We have more services. I can tell you, when I went to school, I hate saying this, at the turn of the century, when I was in graduate school for my PhD, we didn't have like student services. That didn't exist, right? So we're starting to do accommodations that didn't exist. So we're starting to do things better. But let's talk about, like, what does action planning look like? Why don't you think about the STOP model? Okay, the STOP model. STOP stands for, first of all, stop, right? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Take a breath. And we actually underestimate the power of breathing. Observe what's happening and then proceed. Most things in life, most decisions in life are not emergencies. They're not. They're just not. Most of the time we can slow down. Mindfulness-based stress reduction. Another model is rain. Let it rain, guys. Recognize. If you note the emotion, right, it's activating the prefrontal cortex. We calm down. Why? We've labeled, we understand the emotion. Oh, I'm stressed out right now. Oh, I'm anxious. Okay. I'm not going to judge that, but I've recognized it. Allow. The allow doesn't mean I like this. It means I'm willing to pause. I'm not going to judge the feeling. This is Brock's work, right? I'm not going to judge the feeling. I'm not going to fix it, but I'm willing to sit with it for a minute. I'm willing to sit with being sad or anxious or whatever that is. And then next, I'm going to investigate it. Where is it living in my body? Right? Look at it somatically, not just cognitively. You need to do both. Sometimes I ask people, like, especially in crisis debriefing, you point to it. Where are you feeling this in your body? Stomach, heart, right? And as we do this, we're taking the power out of the emotion. And then nurture. Give yourself permission to feel how you're feeling. Give yourself permission to laugh at yourself around how stressed out you are over a paper. Yes, it's important. But we got to develop a pathway back to natural intelligence through clarity and through moving through our stress. I often teach people box breathing, right? This is a 4-step method, right? And then I'll teach you box breathing, breath work, physical activity, affirmations. Be proud of yourself. You are here for a reason. Journaling works for a lot of people. And get it out on paper, type it out. Box breathing is great. It's simple. Breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. And then do that 4 more times. Box breathing just settles us, right? Sometimes I get up in the middle of the night. I don't know about you, something like my legs are shaking. I'm like up here on the anxiety scale. I'm like, oh, right. Okay, I'm anxious. All right. Put my feet on the floor. Okay, I can feel the floor. I'm at my house and safe. I'm just going to breathe. This is going to pass. Stress will pass because I'm in control of it. When I go to a party and I tell people what I do for a living, you know, the first thing they are you analyzing me? That costs money, man. You make an appointment if you want that, right? So you'll get used to that. Those of you in psychology, get used to that. We're not always analyzing people, but people sure think we do. So what do we do for students, the professors in the room? I know there's some professors in the room because they told me they were coming. It made me anxious. I was just kidding. Anyway, create space for your students. It is okay to ask a student what's bothering them. You don't have to be a therapist. It's very human. I often ask that people, like, what are 3 good things happening for you right now? When you think about that at the end of your day, 3 good things that happen to you. I bet most of you get a performance review or grade or something, and you're like, wow, shoot, like, despite the fact I got, 20 things right, that one thing I got wrong, that's what I'm going to focus on, right? You don't need to do that. Work on decreasing your anxiety, counter that depression. Take your foot off the gas. We're still looking at a global pandemic, right? We're still coming out of that. What's interesting is that most organizations, some of the universities I teach at even, coming back, you can be back in the class, everything will be fine. No, it's not. It's not. That's okay that it's not, because people are going to be anxious, going to be stressed. Not just the schoolwork, but now interacting with people again, right? It's normal. We've got to normalize the feeling. Organizations that are really on top of it, they're like maximizing employee and student benefits. You go see the therapist as much as you want. You go have as many massages as whatever you need to reduce your stress will invest in you. And create ways, especially in an online environment, create ways for people to socialize. So for professors out there, especially if it's an asynchronous program, I still meet with students. I offer them opportunities. All right, engage as best you can. So employers, students, like, we need to think about this stuff, right? We need to think about how are we going to provide support, and part of that is peer support. I know it's not rocket science stuff we're talking about, right? We're talking about empathy, doing what's right, not what's easy, finishing what you start. Those basic things to remind ourselves of. Stress is okay, but don't let it own you. So in terms of the context of being a student, practice some positive habits. Use study tools. Reduce your anxiety. Engage in self-care. Put it in your schedule. I have an amazing assistant. Her name is Laura. She's like, you need to stand up now. In my calendar. You need to eat now. In my calendar. Those reminders. Are you getting enough sleep? If not, why not? Manage your time differently. Right? If you're like, I'm out of time, you need to examine what you're doing with your time. And ask good questions. You got to make time for those enjoyable activities, whatever they are for you. Ever heard the saying like kindness? You need to sprinkle that stuff everywhere. Altruistic behaviors, right? Help other people. Exercise, exercise, exercise. And get outside. Studies show us that time spent outdoors reduces stress levels. Period. In Indigenous communities where I work, a lot of our programs are back to the land, right? Reconnecting with the land. Make time for social activities. Develop good relationships with your peers and your professors. I got students, they reach out to me years later. Usually I remember them, right? We're all human. It's okay to be human. It's okay to make mistakes. Try not to procrastinate. And take a step back. Look at where you are and where you've come from to get where you are. That is powerful stuff. You have to make sure you don't forget time for you. And your response to stress, for fear, forget everything and run. Alternatively, face everything and rise. Calmness is a superpower. Calmness is a superpower. And you need to also remember that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to be okay. And tomorrow we're observing September 10th, 2021, World Suicide Prevention Day. It is a growing problem in our society. Every 40 seconds, someone takes their own life. In the world, that means about 800,000 people every year. Most estimates are closer to 1 million. Suicide, leading cause of death for people aged 15 to 29. And for every suicide that results in death, there's at least 40 people attempting. So if you're at that point where you're like, I'm not okay, you reach out. You got my information. You have the school's information. You reach out to a professional or friend. So that is Stress Let's Break Up. Now let's take some of your questions.
Thank you, everyone. There are a lot of questions in the Q&A. We are going to try and get
We'll
through
take one. It'll be easy.
Okay, so let me choose the hardest one.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So we do have a question about strategies or tips for imposter syndrome and how can one identify it?
The fact that you brought it up is that you're identifying it, right? Let me tell you about my PhD dissertation. And I know Dr. Stones, one of my committee members, is here today. And we now do research together that I'm leading. Anyway, when I finished my oral defense from a PhD, and just so you know, I went back and did a PsyD, and I just finished at Cornell. I did a postdoc, so I really like school. I'm not very good at it, but I really like it. I got up, I went to the washroom, and I'm like 5 years, like, okay, so doctor now? Okay, right? You're an expert. those of us who are able to say, whether it's graduates, master's student, PhD, you're a clinician, you're a researcher, you're a teacher, you're whatever, you have the basic foundation, right? You're here for a reason. And we often feel imposter syndrome. Sometimes I go into hard stuff. I'm working some hard stuff right now in Canada. I'm often like, why am I being asked? I don't know what I'm doing. Do I know what I'm doing? And that's that fear response, right? Then when we take our foot off the gas for a minute, just take a step back, reflect, and build on what you got. And some people say fake it till you make it. I think that's a load of crap. It's okay to say, especially when you're a professor, someone asks you a hard question. I have no idea. What do you think? Right? I look that up. I don't know, but I will, and I know how to do it. So the more self-aware we are, the more successful we'll be. Good question.
Perfect. Thank you. It looks like we have somebody who wants to use the stop and let it rain methods with future clients, wants to know where they came from.
Well, I could say that I made it up myself, but that would not be true. And I would not be citing that properly. I will include the citation, but the let it rain is BRACH, Brock's work. Stop is actually a method a lot of my work is in addiction and trauma and crisis. I don't know where this comes from, but stop is something that we stop, take a breath, observe, proceed. Halt is another one, right? Hungry, angry, tired, and lonely. It's triggers for people, stress and addiction. I don't know where those come from, I'm sorry, but rain for sure.
Excellent. We also have someone asking why some individuals have higher stress tolerance than others, and how can we normalize feeling overwhelmed with what others would consider minimal stress?
I apologize, my presentation just shut down. So my stress level was up. You might have to start using the transcript thing again. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Because it's always been trained. A lot of it comes down to training and some of it comes down to temperament. Have you met that like really easygoing person? Like, I love that person. Like, I want that person in my life, right? They just see everything seems to wash off. With training, right? I've been a first responder. I'm dating myself. I've been a first responder in different roles since 1996. And being 30, I'm just kidding. No, I'm like in my 40s, but whatever. I have learned how to bring calm in crisis, right? I know the steps I need to do. And you project that, right? Inside, sometimes you're like a squirrel in traffic, but you know your basics, right? So some people are really good or appear to be really good at managing stress. But that's why you got to ask that person, right? How you manage stress, right? See what they say, listen to them. It might actually be an opening to help them because they're not managing it well, right? But we have a perception, like the person who's driving the nice car, oh, they must be doing well. Not necessarily, right? So we got to check that. We got to check that self-perception. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah. Resilience, right? Resiliency. Some people have resilient factors, some don't.
Now, bear with me. This one is a little bit long.
Oh, that frightens me. Okay.
Take that stress level down.
Yeah, right. As mine go up. Okay, go on.
As a fellow mediator, and keeping in mind we're supposed to remain a neutral third party during sessions, do you feel it may benefit the parties in conflict to bring up some of these effects of stress and how they may be impacting the current conflict? And if so, how do we as mediators address the effects of stress while remaining neutral? Good
question. I love that question. I am a mediator and an arbitrator, and I do messy files because people say I have my superpower is calmness, right? Remember earlier I was talking about, it's not, but anyway, earlier I was talking about labeling the emotion. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. Oh, I'm mad. Oh, I'm sad. What I learned a lot again back at the turn of the century in graduate school when we were face to face and used like hard copy textbooks, when our professors told us or was coaching us around, well, what emotion is happening? I thought, well, they're mad. Yeah, they're mad. Say it. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're mad. And the client will go, oh yeah, I'm mad, right? And all of a sudden there's this realization. There's no difference in arbitration mediation. If we set it up properly, you know what I say? Hey, first of all, good for you for coming together, right? This is stressful. This can be a stressful process. Here's some of the feelings, some of the emotions, but that's why I'm here, right? That's why I'm here. I'm going to facilitate this in a very safe way. Here are some ground rules. I do the same thing in the classroom, right? You're still neutral. You're talking about stress, right? And you're normalizing that piece. And then you're facilitating that discussion in a safe way. Your mediations and arbitrations, they'll go better. Guaranteed, 100%.
Okay, so I have one more. I know we're getting close to time here, but we do have a question that says, can you talk a little bit about drug alcohol addiction?
Yeah.
Since it is a mental health disorder following the DSM criteria.
Yeah, so compulsive disorders. I teach one of the universities, I teach a course on addiction. I teach psychopathology. We talk about this all the time, right? So during COVID, you want to know something? 40% increase in alcohol sales. Why? People are coping, trying to cope, right? The numbing. The thing with a compulsive disorder, right? Whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether it's stress, right? If people who are perfectionists, everything has to be perfect. Guess what? Impossible. And it's this drive towards trying to feel good, right? In terms of dopamine and serotonin and all that. It can be gambling, it can be alcohol, it can be drugs, it can be work and stress, right? And then we go through this guilt and shame piece. Then we start over again because we want to feel good again for a minute. So I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question other than in terms of what we're seeing in society. Think about it. If 70% of people who need mental health service can't get it, what are you going to do? I have a drink before bed. Next thing you know, you haven't drink in the morning, right? Or I'm going to self-medicate. Or I've heard Adderall is good for, that I can stay up all night and study. We self-medicate myself. So what do? Prenatal intervention. People ask me, where do you start? Or with trauma before birth. And being able to have these conversations and then actually have resources for students, employers, people to access to get some support. And as a friend, what you need to do is just listen, right? Your job isn't to give advice. Even as a professional, half the time your job isn't to give advice, it's to listen. I know there's 1 minute left, but thank you for the opportunity to speak on stress. And if your stress is up here and you are not okay, you need to reach out to someone.
Well, I definitely thank you, Dr. Walker, for taking the time to present for us.
Thank you.
Want to thank everyone for joining. Definitely appreciate all the questions. And I just want to remind you all that the recording will be posted on the Center for Teaching and Learning's LibGuides webinar page within 24 hours. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.